Right, looks like that's all right. Let's get set up. We'll wait for some people to join in. Understand if nobody joins right away, we'll give it a few minutes. So, Lucas, this might be a bad time of night. Okay, I got one thumbs up. That's cool. Hello, hello. Good to see you, Karen. Kieran. Hey, if you're in chat, if you could let me know if you hear me okay, I would appreciate it. Margaret, great to see you. Can everybody hear me okay? Hi everyone, we'll wait about another minute before we get going here. Okay, you can hear me, great. Yeah, so I am on a Huandao with Lucas in Taiwan. He's invited me to travel around the island with him. It's a very fast Huandao, and right now we're in Kenting at amazing resort, the Howard Beach Resort. It's just super cool. And this is the lobby that is, I'm sorry, this is the lounge. This is the lounge area for the people who can stay in the villa. So, thank you, Lucas. He's busy doing the filming for the hotel right now, and I didn't have time to make a video for this week, so I thought I would do a live stream. And I thought that the subject of the live stream would be about the Huandao, but turns out that China finally decided to do their Operation Joint Sword 2024B. So we'll talk about that. I was pretty certain that if they did do another Operation Joint Sword, well, let's back up. We'll back up. We'll start at the beginning. So, in May, they did Operation Joint Sword 2024A, and 2024A was basically a response to the new president of Taiwan, William Lai, to him being inaugurated. He gave his inauguration speech. I was pretty sure they were going to do a military exercise, and they did. They named it the same name as the military exercises in 2023. So, in 2023, China had Operation Joint Sword, that's what they called it. It was a live fire exercise, and it lasted about 3 days. And then they did Operation Joint Sword 2024A in May. Because it was 2024A, it was safe to assume that they were going to do at least another military exercise. I thought they were going to do 3, but so far it looks like it's probably only going to be 2. I was pretty sure that one was going to happen in October because of October 10th. Now, I made a video about Operation Joint Sword 2024A and how it was less impressive than what I expected. I expected live fires, which is when the Navy and the Air Force and Army and the Rocket Force that are actually practice shooting live rounds. They're engaging in actually firing live ammunition. That's what live fire means. But they didn't really do that. They did have a lot of ships and a lot of aircraft over, I think it was 2 days, a 2 day period. And this exercise that they just did, 2024B, Operation Joint Sword 2024B, I didn't even find out about it till after it was over. Which I think it's safe to say is not a very impressive live fire. It's not a very impressive exercise. It wasn't even a live fire. Again, there was no live fire. It was a bunch of ships. I think it was about 40, but it was between both the Coast Guard and the Navy. And I did read how it was a record number of aircraft. Now, when they say aircraft, that doesn't mean it's all jet fighters or all bombers. I'm pretty certain that a lot of that aircraft were actually drones, which of course can still be dangerous. Now, they did pretty much the same thing that they've done in the past few years, where they're operating their ships around Taiwan, kind of mimicking blockade. But actually, the majority of the exercise and the movement is like a simulated blockade around Matsu. So these joint sword exercises, they're blockade exercises. Now, the word joint, 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 when you hear that, that means it's a military term for using more than one military service. So that means it's the Army and the Air Force working together, or the Army and the Navy, or Army, Navy, and Air Force. According to China, Operation Joint Swords has the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, and the Rocket Force. However, I haven't seen any footage or read anything that showed any actual Army or Rocket Force presence. It's all been, from what I've seen, mostly Navy and Coast Guard and Air Force, but mostly Navy and Coast Guard. So I'm not exactly sure how involved the PLA and the Rocket Force are, like the actual Army and the Rocket Force are in these exercises. You know, usually I think if they had a significant presence, then China would produce like a propaganda video showing something, but I haven't seen that yet. If you've seen something like that, please link it in the comments or in the description. Oh, in the comments. You can't write in the description, only I can. Please leave a link in the comments so I can see something, because my Chinese is terrible. I can barely read some of it, so I'm sure I'm missing stuff. All right, I have my notes here. Let's see. Now, one of the things that we can take away from this is how short of an exercise it was. It was only 13 hours. 13 hours. That means that this was something for the cameras. This was propaganda. This was not actual beneficial training. To put this into context, even before I was in the active U.S. Army, when I was just a ROTC cadet, just a cadet, I never had a training exercise that lasted less than what we call a field training exercise, okay? Which is what these are. I've never had one that was less than 48 hours. Usually they're more like 72 hours. And that's even in my time in the reserves. I've never had any sort of field training exercise that was less than a day long. So I'm not sure how much training they can actually do in just 13 hours. And we know that this isn't something that was a spur of the moment. This was not impromptu training. China might like to say it is, but the timing behind it is too certain, right? That right after 10-10 day, oh, let's do a training exercise. No, this has been planned for months and months. So not not a very impressive exercise as far as the Chinese military getting good training out of it. Way more something for the TV crews and propaganda and newspaper headlines and stuff like that. It didn't disrupt trade whatsoever. Even in Matsu and Jimin, from what I've seen on the news, the residents there didn't even know about it until it was over. So, not very impressive. Not very impressive. Another thing that we can look at is what didn't happen, what we haven't seen. Okay? So, for example, if this is supposed to be a big blockade training exercise to intimidate Taiwan and intimidate the rest of the world, how come I have never seen any footage, any propaganda footage, nothing about the Chinese Navy actually stopping a civilian ship and boarding that ship and taking it over? There's no, I haven't seen that. So if you're training for blockade operations, but you're not actually doing blockade operations, I don't see the value in that as far as actual military training. So again, to me, it sounds like propaganda. It just looks like it's just propaganda. If the U.S. was going to do something like this, or many other countries were going to do something like this, where they're planning to train on how to blockade an island, then they would have their own civilian ships pretending to come in and as like pretending to be the enemy's ships, stopping those ships and boarding them and taking control and going through the routine, right? The more you train, the better you'll be in combat. And it just doesn't seem to me like the PLA the China's Navy is taking this very seriously as far as training is concerned. There's a phrase that the U.S. uses: the more you sweat in training, the less you'll bleed in combat. There's another phrase: you fight how you train, so train how you fight. Okay? They're not really doing the fighting part in their training. That's another example. I haven't seen any evidence that they're pretending that they're operating under fire, that they're going to be engaging with Taiwan's Air Force or Taiwan's Navy or anything like that. Usually in these big field training exercises, there's what's called the opposition force, or the OP4, the opposition force. And this is a group of your own soldiers who are pretending to be the enemy. I haven't seen any evidence of that in any of the Operation Joint Sword exercises. Maybe I'm wrong. If you have a source that is showing something like this, please leave it in the comments because I'd love to see it. Okay, let's see what else I have here. Oh, we're talking about the increase of the number of flights. Yeah, it was over 150 flights in 13 hours. Now, if you do the math on that and you break it down, it's, I think it's about 2 flights every 5 minutes or so. I mean, I'm not sure if that's exactly, I don't think it was spread out that evenly, but that was like the rate of flights per hour is what it would be. About 2 an hour, what they call sorties an hour. Now, a U.S. aircraft carrier, when they're doing their military exercises, they're supposed to have two flights in less than a minute. Two flights taking off and one landing in less than a minute. So this is a rate that is 10 times slower than what a U.S. aircraft carrier is capable of. And although they did have an aircraft carrier involved in these exercises, most of these flights coming from China are coming from airfields. So you would assume that if they're really trying to train properly, that they would be taking off at a much faster rate. But again, this isn't proper training. They're not really training for war. They're just trying to make a news story for propaganda. I think most of it is for propaganda aimed at China's own citizens, the Chinese, not necessarily the rest of the world. I mean, it's not really front page news in any of the international newspapers that I've been checking out. All right, the most interesting aspect of this, though, for me, has been the increased presence of the Coast Guard around the Matsu Islands. All right, now, Matsu and Jimin, these outlying islands, these are legitimately too far away for Taiwan's military to properly defend. If there was a conflict, if there was a blockade, there honestly isn't much that Taiwan's military could do to stop China's military. I mean, just the amphibious tanks that China has, theoretically, can cross the water and land. They don't even need ships in order to land troops onto Jimin and Matsu, some of the Matsu Islands. I thought it was interesting that the presence was much more concentrated on Matsu than it was on Jimin. I think this is a political reason. From what I understand, I think the CCP is really trying to be very kind to Jimin Island. They've started tourism there again. They're talking about maybe building a bridge between mainland China and Jimin. So it wouldn't be a surprise to me to see an increase in Chinese propaganda and money just thrown at Jimin in particular. Maybe with the intention to try and get Jimin Island to vote to leave Taiwan and join the CCP on their own accord, which would be the ideal situation for the CCP. I think this is something that Taiwan's government should wargame out, should plan for, and what their response is going to be if this happens. Because they should have a couple of responses if the CCP is promoting Jimin to make like a referendum vote to leave Taiwan. It doesn't seem like the attitude towards the CCP is as kind in the Matsu Islands as it is in Jimin. So I think that is why the blockade exercises were more intense in Matsu. Now, my last note here is that I think that, oh wait, is this my last note? Yes. My last note is that I think we're probably going to see an Operation Joint Sword 2025. I think this is going to be an annual thing. I'm not sure when the next operation will be. It wouldn't surprise me if it's also again happening in May, simply because from what I understand, the waters in the Strait of Taiwan and the Taiwan Strait are a little calmer in May. I wouldn't be surprised if it's an annual occurrence in October simply because of 10-10 Day. So, all right, let me check chat. Sorry that I have been ignoring chat here, so I'm going to say hi to everybody. Jade, hello. Hello, Kevin. Penny, hello. Hello, Rick. Jenny. Now, my Chinese is terrible, so if I'm not reading a comment in Chinese, it's because I don't understand it. Now you're good at those tech things. I am okay at some of the technical stuff, but I am not an expert because there's just too much to know. Yang Yang says Taiwan's F-16s have a seat for you. Thanks in advance. Whoa, that'd be so cool to be in an F-16. That would be intense. Now, it's worth pointing out that the F-16s, F-16EXs that Taiwan has, they're equipped with what's called a sniper pod, and this is a long-range sensor, and they were able to lock on to the heat signature. That's called an infrared lock. Okay, they were able to lock on to the heat from the engines of the J-15s that were taking off from that aircraft carrier. And those J-15s had no idea that they were locked on. They had no idea there were F-16s flying nearby. I'm pretty sure of that. All right. All I can say is they are very good at making AI animation videos. Yes, it's very, very telling that the Chinese military propaganda videos are almost all computer graphics. They're not actual video. They're not real video. They're not. You look at propaganda films from the US, which they make. Okay, every military has its own propaganda films, but American made ones are actual cameras like on the F-16s. They're actually doing it. Maybe some computer graphics here and there, but it's not 100% fake like China produces. In fact, like I think it was 2022, a couple of years ago, China got caught using American movies, old war movies, like from this 90s movie called The Rock was one of them. And they just color graded it. They changed the color, they did some photoshopping, and they made it as a part of their own propaganda film. So silly. Mr. Golden Ball says, I believe the threat comes from within the island. Yes, I agree. I think the biggest threat comes from within. I like your background music. Well, that is the Howard Hotel's background music. It is very nice and calming. This is an amazing place to stay. The calming music is a nice match, though. Yes, thank you. Anne says another word meaning for joint is that two nations. Yes, yes. If two nations like China and Russia, or Taiwan and Japan, or the U.S. and Korea are working together, that also means joint. Okay, Casper. Reportedly, PLA rocket force launched two ballistic missiles to China enter landing, according to an unnamed Taiwan official. Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense that they did something. It's worth noting that China did launch a ballistic and intercontinental ballistic missile test launch last month. And Russia tried to do the same thing, but theirs exploded in the silo. That's embarrassing. Maverick says maybe what they planned was just doing the scrambling with the PLA Navy. Yeah, maybe, especially if maybe the sailors didn't know much about it and had to scramble. But I'm sure that the generals and the admirals were aware. 8 LGM, Scorzini, hi, hi, thanks for being a member. Yang Yang asks, how about China's ability to coordinate a swarm of armed drones? Yeah, I think that is a significant threat. I mean, we can see that they are able to coordinate drones, civilian drones, because they have like civilian drone light shows. So I would assume that they could figure out how to coordinate a swarm of armed drones. Now, the issue with drones is that the small ones like that, they just don't have the range to reach Taiwan proper. Absolutely, Jimin and Matsu. they're too close to the mainland. They have the range to do that. So some of these improvised drones that we've seen Russia and Ukraine using, those could theoretically easily be used by China against G-min and Matsu. But those actual drones are too small to actually make it all the way to Taiwan. They do have larger drones that are basically the size of an aircraft, or smaller aircraft that could do that could reach Taiwan. But, they'd just be shot down with Stinger missiles. All right, the CCP put the target on Trump. Tons of CCP agents are now in the U.S. setting up assassins. Too many Chinese are in the U.S. now, so the U.S. government really has to do something before it's too late. Yes, I think that with the open borders against illegal immigration that has happened in the past 3.5 years, that many agents are in the United States, not just Chinese, but absolutely Chinese agents are. I think there's many agents from many different countries that are within the U.S. now. Let's see. All right, some more hives. The F-16 sniper pod. Catherine says, many years ago, China mentioned they could provide clean water for G-min. Yeah, I think they're trying to butter up G-min. That's the term for being really nice, really nice. Now, I think that's a great tactic. If I was in China, that's what I would be using too. But I think they really screwed up by how brutal they've been towards Hong Kong. If they really wanted that, look how we can play nice with others, you're better off being part of our economy and under our government. They should have just let Hong Kong run itself. It would have been way easier for them to convince G-min and Matsu and anyone in Taiwan that maybe it is better with the CCP. But after they just screwed up with Hong Kong, I mean, you'd have to be pretty foolish to think that, they're not going to be mean to me. Of course they are. Michael says, I saw the clip you already filmed with Koo. Yeah, I did a podcast with Koo. Maybe that's what you're talking about, Koo's podcast. Let's see. Yichin Chu says, what's up? I'm doing a Huandao with Lucas. That's what's up. Saw you in Taipei this week. Cool, man. I was in Taipei this week. Yeah, I was walking around. I was visiting my only student that I have left. And I was able to hang out with Koo for a little bit and do his podcast, which was really cool. We talked for a long time. So it'll probably be edited down. And met up with Lucas. So that was all great. And a couple other comments in Chinese that I am sorry, I am unable to read. Oh, speak of the devil, looks like Lucas just finished his filming. I'll scoot over, give him a microphone. Lucas, I just finished chatting about, that should be working. I just finished talking about Operation Joint Sword 2024B.
Oh, is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, that's what they're calling it. And
that's not what I'm calling what happened last night.
No, that's a different joint sword. No, and just got finished reading through the comments, and yeah, so I was about to wrap things up here.
What?
Yeah.
You just warmed them up now.
Yeah.
Now is when the real live stream starts.
Oh, we have some more comments come up here. Oh, I don't want to get. There we go. That's a bit better. The camera's right here where the comments show up. How tall are you? Let's see. I'm 187 centimeters, maybe 188, depending on the shoes I'm wearing. I am shorter than Lucas.
I'm 193 without shoes.
Whoa, you're as tall as my brother.
Sorry, you continue. I'm just gonna go and grab a coffee. I'm
of
back
course.
in 20 seconds.
Yeah, of course.
Like, have you shown them when I have been here busy working? Have you shown them like what you have been doing here while I'm like just trying to make a living.
Just drinking coffee while he's doing all the work. Would you keep this video? Yeah, I keep all my live streams up. If you're looking through YouTube, you have to click on the actual like live stream tab, the menu. I think this is my 3rd or 4th live stream though. I don't have too many. Hello, Lucas. Hi, Lucas. Many highs to you there, Lucas.
Hi guys, I'm getting coffee right now, but I'll be moving very, very soon.
Guys, this Howard Resort is amazing. It is really awesome. Kenting is really beautiful. But if you're going to stay here, it's worth checking out the Howard.
Fu Huan, if anyone is speaking Chinese.
You know what? The coffee in the Villa Lounge is better than the coffee in the restaurant.
Did you stay in the villa too?
Yeah, I've said that we're in the Villa Lounge right now, which is why it's empty.
Come on, it's Uncle Topher. Of course we're in the Villa Lounge. I try to walk with him. I don't know where we were in Jai or like Hainan. I try to walk with him through a night market. There was like 3 people. And he's like, wow, wow, 你是那个 Captain America 美国队长.
It's only because that coup video was popular.
Impossible.
That's the only reason why. Okay, I'll wait for the comments. I'll wait for you to get your coffee before. There we go. You're on your way. All right. Yang says, can you vote overseas? Yes, because I am a resident of Colorado. I can vote overseas, and I can actually vote online. I have already voted. I will make a members video explaining who I voted for and why. So you're gonna have to pay to see that. Where are you, Kaohsiung? No, we're in Kenting right now.
Howard Hotel.
Yeah, the Howard Hotel in Kenting. More welcomes for Lucas. Lucas, can you read any of the Chinese comments?
Of course.
Yeah.
Hao Gao, very tall. And then the other one says Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas. Hello, Lucas.
Oh, the very low voice.
Oh, yeah,
I think
that's me.
that was because I fucked up the microphone.
Oh, Hi, Topher. Do you have family in Taiwan, like son or a wife? Well, I hope I don't have any kids in Taiwan. No, I don't have a wife. I have maybe what we would call a surrogate family, where my I have a student that I've been teaching for almost 7 years, which is over half her life. And I'm very, very good friends with her father and her mom. So it's basically like my Taiwanese niece and brother and sister. So
nice.
Kind of.
Very nice having one of those.
Yeah. Can you read this one from Wu Hings?
他跟卢卡斯走一起，不要被卢卡斯。Oh wow. I'm not gonna translate that.
Oh no, it's saying how cool you are.
No, basically they're saying you're traveling with me. Make sure I don't make you fat. Because apparently that's how I travel.
Too late. It's too late.
Little do they know that I am on a food diet.
Yeah, I've been eating more than Lucas this trip.
I'm gonna set up here. Here, you have the live stream and you have the
Oh, that makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
There we go.
Okay. Let's see. Tukos 12. As we've seen a trend in these military exercises in recent years increase, what can be done to reverse this trend and ease the situation? I'd say diplomacy is probably the first step. Talking is better, but Taiwan will probably have to lean on its more powerful friends to convince China that this is not that cool of a thing to do. That's where I would start. There's other things that can be done, which would be probably not something I should mention in public, because it would be like black ops kind of stuff.
You have to be a member to see that.
Gotta pay to see that one. Yeah. But these exercises actually provide Taiwan with an opportunity as a training exercise as well. So all the air defense, they're able to, lock on to Chinese aircraft. The Taiwanese Navy can scramble, and there's a lot of opportunity for Taiwan to get intelligence on Chinese operations. Listen to all the frequencies that they're using, gives them more chances to break the codes that they're using. So every time they do something like this, it's an opportunity to learn. Don't ask too personal, be polite. All right, that's just Lucas as a translator. Topher, Lucas.
I need to listen interesting. 英文不好. Yeah, they just want me to learn.
Oh, okay.
目前在看听的复报. Yeah, we're currently at the Howard Hotel.
Nope.
Everyone can use Google to translate your questions to English.
Oh, well, yeah, sure. Yeah, if you have a question, you'd have to do it in English for me. If you have a question for me. And I think it'd be easier on Lucas, too. He's fat.
Yes, I've been working since like 7:30 this morning. My brain is toast right now.
Yeah. Let's see, here's a question from, that's a cool name. It's like something T. See that? That's a cool name. Chung T. Topher, I believe Taiwan can handle the threat from the CCP, but I am most afraid of the KMT in Taiwan. They are too pro-communist. Well, I can understand that sentiment. I think it's interesting how the KMT has evolved from being the #1 enemy of the CCP to being, I think pro-China is too friendly of a term, but the least adversarial to the CCP out of all of Taiwan's political parties, major parties at least. But to be honest, I think you have to watch out for corruption in any political party. I think just because they have a certain series of letters in them, DPP, KMT, and what's the TPP, those are the big three. Those are made of people. Okay, any person can be corrupted, or not any person, but the CCP can target any individual with the chance to pay them off, and not just politicians, but also soldiers. It's pretty routine that we see a news article where a young officer or an NCO, a sergeant, is trying to sell pictures to the CCP or something like that. It's not uncommon, so it's a significant threat. I agree with that. Food diet. Yeah.
Food diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a food diet, and part of it's exercise. It's pretty cool.
If you want to see that, you have to subscribe to my channel, because there's going to be a video out in around December, maybe.
Michael says we have so many bad neighbors, same as North Korea. Okay. I think you only have one bad neighbor, I think Vietnam's pretty friendly, and Philippines are obviously friendly. Japan, I think they're a friend of Taiwan from everything I can tell. So yeah, I think most of Taiwan's neighbors are pretty friendly. You just have that one that's pretty annoying. Let's see, Untecton, are you comfortable in your rented house in Kaohsiung? How about having a large dog? Oh, I live in an apartment that is too small to have a large dog. It is very comfortable though. It's in an older building, but like it was recently redecorated, so everything in it is new. It's pretty nice, and I like the neighborhood I live in. Hey, Alan's in chat.
Alan is in chat. Happy birthday, Alan.
Happy birthday, bro.
I believe it was Alan's birthday yesterday, at least according to Instagram. So,
yeah.
Happy birthday.
Alan is 25 years old now. Okay. Yang Yang, what is it like being trained in the U.S. military? Are international politics or history courses are taught? They are taught at a certain level, but you have to be in the military at a pretty high rank before you start learning that kind of stuff. So most of the lower ranks and the lower officer ranks, they don't really get very much international politics, geopolitics, or history lessons. Once you are what's called a field officer, which is a majors, colonels, generals, that's when that starts happening. Of course, international politics is a hobby for a lot of officers and sergeants. Most of the lower enlisted just like to get drunk and party though. Kevin, hello from Michigan. Hope you guys are doing well. Wow, what time is it in Michigan? It's got to be early morning, right? Hello. If Trump is elected, oh, Alan says he's 26. Sorry, Alan. My bad. If Trump is elected, he might have a solution. According to an interview with Trump yesterday, he said this military exercise would be the last one because they knew there is no exercise onward. Well, maybe. Trump says a lot of things, though. And not a lot of them actually end up happening. You know, he's right sometimes. But even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, you know, Trump's trying to get elected. So, of course, he's going to say things like, I can end the Ukraine war in a day. China won't have another military exercise. Stuff like that, you know. I mean, he said that he was going to build a big border wall and that Mexico would pay for it. And in 4 years, he did build a large chunk of wall. That's for sure. It did happen. But Mexico didn't pay any of it. I mean, in fact, Mexican illegal immigrants are part of the labor force on some of the sections. Happy birthday to Alan. What Kaohsiung neighborhoods do you recommend? Do you like Kaohsiung more than Taipei? Yes, I do like Kaohsiung more than Taipei.
Wow. Okay, my live stream is over.
Yeah, bye, Lucas.
We're gonna get some coffee.
I really like the Pier 2 area in Kaohsiung. That's just a really cool, artsy, hip, fun place. I really enjoy it. Let's see, there's some really great shopping around Sanduo and north by the HSR station up there. But if I could choose to move tomorrow, I would probably try and find a place in the Pier 2 area. It's just really, really artsy and hip. And I like walking and seeing murals and statues and sculptures and stuff like that all the time. And it's very close to the mountain. You can hike up the Monkey Mountain and check out the animals in the zoo. Irene asks, how do you vote online? I didn't find that option. My address is in Florida. Florida might not be able to vote online. I was able to do it because I'm a Colorado resident. So I'm not sure about Florida. And then, yeah, Florida, Kevin explains it. All right, thanks, Kevin. Kevin, some states allow it. I was surprised that I could do it. I thought I would have to mail in my ballot, but I was able to do it online. But Colorado has pretty good voting laws. There's another question. For example, if China insists another military exercise, then Trump will raise the tariff from 20 to 50. Okay, well, that would definitely influence China to not do stuff like that. And that's kind of going, as I said before, that diplomacy with some of your more powerful friends. If Taiwan can convince America to raise tariffs on all Chinese goods every time they do an intimidating military exercise, I think that would give them a second thought if they would continue to do stuff like this. Ray's asking, do you think there is a possibility of war between North and South Korea? Will it affect the current situation in Taiwan? I mean, of course, there's a possibility. I don't think it's very likely. So, North Korea has recently taken a massive change in their policies for that they've had since the Civil War, where they have stopped with the message of reunification. And the idea basically was that reunification was going to happen by combat, right? And they've just said, no, we're not going to do that. And some analysts have said, oh, this means they're more likely that they're going to have a war. I think this is less likely that they're going to have a war. I think a lot of the stop of talking about reunification, destroying what was called the reunification monument or statue, something that Kim Jong-un's grandfather raised. I think this is a lot of internal North Korean politics, and we're seeing a switch from the idea that we're going to someday conquer the South, which is a very old school idea, to we're going to have to figure out our place in the world, but we're going to be our own thing, the South is going to be its own thing. I think demolishing some of the roads and bridges in between North and South Korea is a great indicator that they're not thinking about invading South Korea anytime soon. Now, the North Koreans, they absolutely have to save face and have a display of strength in anything that they're doing. So this is just really small incremental steps towards what I think is going to be a more peaceful relationship between South Korea and the rest of the world than what we've seen in the past. I think the biggest indicator of that is when the U.S. soldier last year, maybe it was earlier this year, escaped from he broke the law in South Korea. There was a U.S. soldier, broke the law in South Korea, had to fly back to the U.S., escaped from his confinement in the barracks, and ran into North Korea. Now, there have been American soldiers that have defected to North Korea before, a few of them. Most of that happened in the 50s. Every single one of those guys basically forced to stay in North Korea and be like TV stars, like actors, okay? And propaganda pieces. There was that college kid that tore down a poster in North Korea. He thought he would take it home as a souvenir, and he was detained in North Korea for years and years and years, and finally was allowed to go back to the U.S. But by the time he went back to the U.S., he was in a comatose state and died not long after reaching the States, which I think was North Korea's way of explaining that we have very advanced poison technology, which they do have. Kim Jong-un's uncle was poisoned through a very interesting two-phase poison, I think in a Vietnamese airport. Maybe it was Singapore and it was done by Vietnamese women. One of those, I'm not sure. Anyways, the fact that this recent soldier was just handed back unharmed within 2 months, I called that one wrong. I had no idea that that was going to happen. So I think these are steps in a positive way, a positive direction, not a negative one. All right, that was too long of an answer. Sorry, I can be long-winded. Third assassination attempt, what do you think? Did another assassination attempt happen with Trump? I haven't looked at my phone all day, so I'm not sure.
We've been busy and enjoying our lives.
Yeah, I think a guy was arrested before the attempt happened.
What was the second one?
Well, I think the first one was when he got shot in the ear.
Uh-huh.
The second one was when this guy had an AK-47 out at
Oh, the golf course.
Mar-a-Lago at the
Yeah,
golf
okay,
course,
yeah.
which he was way too far away to accurately hit anybody with an AK-47. But I did hear about maybe a third arrest, but I don't know much about it because I've been kind of busy. Sorry. Topher, what do you think of Elon Musk's recent strong endorsement of Trump? I think Elon Musk is really tired of the Biden-Harris administration being not really great for business for him in California. So the whole COVID-19 thing, that didn't really do well for him. And he had this issue where, so with SpaceX, I couldn't remember the name. So with SpaceX, they basically have the ability to launch ballistic rockets, a ballistic missile, and hit anywhere on the planet, right? So they're under very, very, very strict, top secret level security concerns when and screening when it comes to their employees. So they cannot hire anyone who is not a U.S. citizen. I think maybe a residency can be screened as well. Anyways, you have to at least be a U.S. resident and be screened to have secret security clearance before you can even work at SpaceX, okay? And if they violate that, then Elon Musk could get arrested. Well, the U.S., the FAA sued Elon Musk for not hiring asylum seekers for SpaceX. So they sued him for not hiring people who weren't even in the U.S. yet. They were seeking asylum in the U.S. But if he did hire them for SpaceX, he's also breaking the law. So I think he's tired of this ridiculous bureaucracy that has happened under the Biden-Harris administration. I think he's also very tired of what is called identity politics, which the Democrats are really leaning in towards. And I have to agree with him on that. I think a meritocracy is what made the U.S. pretty awesome. And we've seen kind of a drifting away from that with some things. Maverick's asking, Topher, I would like to know more about the National Guard in the U.S. There are news about Taiwanese troops send combat personnel to train with the Michigan National Guard regularly. Well, the National Guard, most of them, they train one weekend a month. And a lot of them used to be active duty Army, I guess, or Air Force, because there's National Guard Air Force as well. But they used to be active duty. Most of them used to be active duty, and now they just train a weekend a month. Technically, they're under the control of the governor of the state, but they can be mobilized by the president in case of an emergency. Like in the Iraq War, the National Guard were sent to Iraq all the time. The quality of a National Guard soldier really depends on the unit, on the area that they come from. I've worked with some National Guard soldiers that were really impressive, and I've worked with some that were more or less a laughing stock. So it's the quality really varies. Like with the active military, you're not going to get a lot of change in the quality of the soldier, the quality of the unit, but in the National Guard, that can really shift, that can really change. I'm surprised that they go to Michigan to train because Michigan is pretty cold. I would think that they would go to Hawaii to train. It would make more sense. Maybe there's something in Michigan, like a specific artillery unit or a specific Abrams tank, like a tank unit. So if they're going to Michigan, it's probably because of a certain piece of equipment that they're training on. All right. What's the concept and purpose for the National Guard nowadays? Well, I think I just said that they're basically, the National Guard has always been basically like just a reserve military force. Outposts only provide early warning. If they plan to attack, they need to move many personnel and weapons to the border. Yes, okay, I agree with that. Lucas, how do the Swedes see U.S. election in general? Who is your favorite?
Who is more favored
Yeah.
in the eyes of Swedes?
Ah.
Good question. I mean, I don't know anything about Swedish politics, but I think the Swedish concept is that people who are on Biden, Kamala side, is that how you say Kamala Harris?
Kamala?
Kamala.
Kamala?
On the Biden Harris side, they are more proud of it.
Okay.
Whereas people who would vote for Trump would be more quiet about it because it wouldn't really be deemed like, you would just get so many more questions and it wouldn't be deemed as a, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. The counter reply would be like, why? Like, why? He is a douchebag, da da da. And it would just be like based on him as a person of what we see in Swedish news.
Yeah,
Of the
that's
things
fair.
that he says.
Yeah.
And most of the things I'm sure are taken out of context, but it's only about Trump did this, Trump did that. I have no idea about the politics behind. I just know about like the person. And I think that's like how most of Swedish people are watching the election as well. Like
Yeah.
mainstream who don't care about politics.
Yeah, I think most NATO countries that are really that aren't diving deep into the U.S. politics, they're probably not going to have a very favorable opinion of Trump, if I had to guess, because he's said enough things that would seem hostile to the NATO allies.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi Topher. Hi Lemon. Lemon Gelato. Hello. Kevin says, I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris, but I really don't want to go down in history as part of the group that is the first ever to vote for a convicted felon in the presidency. Fair enough. Fair enough. Irene asked, do you think the U.S. should ban TikTok? I don't. I think the U.S. should maybe limit TikTok, but I think the U.S. should maybe limit all social media for children at a certain age. I know that sounds very authoritarian and like, oh, you're against free
The
speech.
land of the free.
But I think that just young brains can be too influenced by these super high-tech algorithms just pumping non-stop information into their tiny brains. I don't think TikTok should necessarily be banned. I think it's probably a good idea to force them to sell their US side of the business to someone other than BitDance, because BitDance has to give, is a Chinese company, so they have to give all of that data to the CCP. It's part of Chinese law. Would that make a big difference? Maybe not. Even if a US company was there, they would sell that data to the CCP anyways, like Facebook does. So not a giant difference, but a little bit. I do think that TikTok and other social media should be completely banned from official government phones. So if you're working in a top secret facility, you should not be able to bring in a phone that has any sort of social media, any sort of app that is always listening, for that metadata, trying to get that. Topher, my buddy in the 82nd wanted me to tell you air assault. Okay, 82nd Airborne, really awesome guys. Friendly rivalry with the 101st, which is who I was from. So, they're all American. You can tell your buddy all American from me. Good guys, the 82nd. Lucas, I'm getting pretty hungry. I think we're coming up on an hour. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great weekend. Peace and love. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.